So we have a stand-in producer today.
All right.
Who is our daughter,
Ayo.
Ella Ford. She's learned how to work she's learned how to work the buttons over there.
That's a sweet scenario. I think the key is to keep it light and playful. You could say something like, "Oh, actually, I read that Johnny Appleseed was pretty tall and lean."
That's incredible. If you could help me out, because my wife she misspoke a minute ago, and she said that Johnny Appleseed was short when in fact he was tall and lean. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dialogue Podcast. I'm Greg Ford.
I'm Shaylyn Ford.
It's been a while. We haven't done this in a while.
I know, getting our act together, bro.
We're back. We're back in the habit.
Let's be honest though, it happens to everybody. Like summer just kind of takes your whole schedule, and it's like, here you go, ta-da! Like to the wind. It doesn't care.
Yep.
Summer does not care.
Yeah, that's no doubt. So today's a little bit special because our normal producer, Brandon, is on vacay.
It's special because he's gone. That's terrible.
Okay, can I complete my thought, or are you just gonna
Go ahead.
just gonna throw me under the bus?
I mean,
So it's Brandon. We love you. I feel a need to clarify that we love you. We love your family. He took his wife and twins on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a stand-in producer today.
All right.
Who is our daughter,
Ayo.
Ella Ford. She's learned how to work she's learned how to work the buttons over there.
Hello there.
So this might be a huge mistake.
It could be,
but we
I think it's not a mistake.
We gave her
I think
access.
you're going to be happy.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So can I add to that? It's kind of fun for me, Ella. A little bit of a full circle moment. I'm gonna have to find this picture. Maybe you can pop it in post. But I have a picture of me, around a little bit older than you, producing a TV show at the University of Findlay in my headphones and the whole gear. You and I don't have a lot of like the same types of interests and things that we do, and it's kind of fun to have a little
we need to get that
crossover.
We need
there.
to get a little side by side.
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, since we have Ella here, Ella, you can feel free if there are questions, things you want to ask, or comments. Okay. Don't interrupt too much, but we'll kind of start with the first one. Just like, who do you love more? Your mom or your dad? Like, so, I mean, if you had to I know it
depends on the occasion.
Yeah. So it's just, let's just say all is stripped away,
right.
Just down to
when it comes down to
who do you love more?
God the Father, obviously.
Oh,
that's the only right answer.
Okay,
That's the only right answer. The Father above
Honestly,
all fathers.
Ella, I couldn't even be mad. We were just looking at Ella's new
driver's
license, and she just looks like Greg with makeup on. So I don't blame you
Greg
for
with a glow.
She looks way better than I would
Greg
look
with
in
some
makeup.
a
lipstick.
highly feminized version of Greg. So I'm just saying I understand if you pick your dad. I won't be.
Well, I realize that's not a quick question. You don't need to answer it, but I'll say, which one of your brothers do you love more?
Miles.
Oh my!
We need
I'm
to
joking.
chop out
I
this
love.
entire
I
segment.
love them both
Okay. Well,
so much.
Fortunately, neither of them care about the podcast or listen to it.
I
So.
thought
is
you were
true.
going to say neither of them care about her at all, which
That is also probably true.
All right.
moving on.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know what does that mean.
Cooked. That means a timer.
Oh, that means it's
That's
cooked.
a timer.
Okay. So I got a couple things I want to talk about.
Okay.
And obviously, like, you have no idea.
Hit me with it.
I'm reversing the roles. Remember when we used to do
I
the
know.
podcast?
I'm here for it. I'm here for the flippity flip.
Yeah. All right. So thinking about Sunday, I was talking about the flesh, right? So the Bible, the Apostle Paul in the book of Galatians, he talks about, uses the word sarx.
SARX.
That's right.
For those who were not party to that message.
Yeah, so in the Bible, in the range of meaning, it's everything from your physical body, just describing a human body. But then the second is it talks about essentially our wiring as human beings. So it is also your internal environment. And so in the first century, a lot of the conversations among rabbis and among philosophers were about living your best life, so to speak, and doing so not being just driven by your more animalistic or beastly urges. And so it was everything from your appetites, like your physical appetites, your sexual appetites. A lot of those things connect to your body's designed to keep craving food to stay alive. And so not allowing those appetites to ultimately run your life, but then even a deeper conversation of psychological health, so to speak, around the temptations we have towards pride and also towards fear, right? So that how fear and insecurity often can sort of take over in somebody's psyche and their mindset and drive them into behaviors, decisions, attitudes that are not freedom and that ultimately can cause varying degrees of harm. Okay, so if you take the idea, I think we would all agree, pride is not good. I mean, self-esteem is good, arrogance or pride. Also being driven by fear is not good, and certainly being a slave to your appetites is not good. So if you look at the opposite of those things, so if let's take pride first. The opposite of that would be someone who's truly humble, right? So if I want to be that, and I want to associate myself with such people, what are the things you've noticed in your human relationships that has caused you to really identify true humility in a person, right? So think of it like this. Some people, when you first meet them, they come off really humble, and over time you find out that person's actually not very humble. And then others that you meet that actually don't come off humble at first. I know I've had this experience. I've met people that did not seem to be humble. Over time, the more I got to know them, I'm like, actually, I misread them. So if take your like human experiences, all the data that you've created in your interactions, what are some of the signs or things that you've learned about people that are signs of true humility, whether in them or in yourself?
That's a really good question. It actually, the first thing that came to mind for me was an interview that I saw with Maya Angelou back in probably like the late 70s, I think it was. And she was saying...
That's always a good place to start.
Always.
Anything from Maya Angelou.
Never.
Absolute baller.
You're always fine.
Yeah.
But she was talking about all of the, somebody was asking, like, you do all of these things and, like, how do you stay modest, basically, and she was like, oh, I'm not, like, not at all. And she's like, basically saying, like, I stand fully in the confidence of who I am and what I can do. And she said, there's a difference between that and humility. And I'm maybe slightly misquoting what words she used, but basically she was saying, like, there's a form of what we would think is humility, but really is like false humility, right? Where you're just being so modest and you're downplaying the things that you're really gifted in or whatever. And, oh, no, don't look at me too much,
so
whatever.
Humbled.
I'm so humbled. And it's like, no, you're really not, actually. That's very false humility. But real humility is going, everything, and this is what she added on to it, everything that I have about me. She said, like, when I go up on stage and I speak, I am taking everyone with me who's ever poured into me. And so you see, if you see charisma, if you see strength, if you see, it's not just mine, it's everyone that's poured something into me over the years. And then obviously in our context, we would say the things that God has put into you as well. And I thought that was a really great take on that. I don't know if I've ever heard her have a bad take on anything. But it's like, yeah, that's the difference between false humility and real humility. It's not shying away from a spotlight. I think it's easy to look at someone who is comfortable in a spotlight and assume that they're full of themselves. And that's not necessarily the case. Or that somebody that's constantly deflecting is so humble. Oh, no. It's like, no, you recognize that you have worked so hard to be where you are, and you own that strength and are comfortable in it and are proud of it, but you also don't neglect all the other people that were part of that journey and that added to it, and the things that God has given to you that you then honed, and that none of this is completely from you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just think that was such a great take on that. And it really has helped me, I think, assess a little more in other people the difference between someone who's just really comfortable in their own skin, not arrogant, just really cool and comfortable with who they are, and people who are maybe using humility almost as a manipulation tactic
Right.
to get you to like them more or to get ahead. And they're actually not humble at all.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's,
No, I think that's really good. I was thinking about the other day how I think it all starts with self-awareness. So if you go and do the hard work of self-awareness, like digging deep into who you are, understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, understanding where you're healthy and strong and where you're broken, and just being very acquainted with yourself.
Yeah.
I think what naturally pops out of self-awareness is confidence, number one, because you go, I know who I am.
and I know who I'm not.
And I know who I'm not. And I know where I'm gifted and I know where I'm not. And so I think confidence is like that first thing that comes out.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that comes out is humility, which is because I know who I'm not, again, I'm humble around those things. I actually celebrate those who are good at those things.
I appreciate other people for who they are.
That's right. But I'm not like feeling like their success is somehow devaluing me because of my self-awareness. I know what my strengths are, and I'm confident in those things. So I think, to me, it's almost like to have true humility, you have to have true confidence.
Yeah.
I feel like if you don't, and then it's like humility can either, insecurity can either come out as what might look like or masquerade as humility, or it can masquerade as pride and arrogance, right? Often insecure people, they either are some of the cockiest people who are always thumping their own chest, but really they're just insecure. But also on the other side, some people that people go, oh, they're so humble. No, they really just have a poor self-esteem.
Yeah.
So it can kind of play out either way. Like you said, depending on your personality type, some people are more comfortable in the spotlight. Some people are more comfortable behind the scenes. But the key is self-awareness and coming to peace with who you are, and then allowing that confidence. So to me, when I'm looking for someone who's truly humble, not just, insecure and in a coming off humble, or again, arrogant and actually just insecure, I'm looking for confidence. I want to see like that they really understand who they are and they feel good about who they are, and they've grabbed a hold of their own confidence.
Yeah.
And then at the same time that they're not devaluing other people.
Yeah.
That they don't see themselves as above other people. They see themselves as a human being who is, good at some things and not so good at others. The other thing that I found is I've noticed that the more I've been around people and, to see them beyond just the first impression, the people that at least I would assess as being humble are people that are really good listeners. Like, I think often people that don't listen well, they're not either willing to listen, or they're not really digesting what other people are saying. In some ways are signaling that they just don't think that people have much to teach them or offer them. It's just like, why would I listen to you? It's not producing value.
Yeah.
And so you notice that, like,
Someone who asks good questions.
I've had people who
Yeah.
are so much more successful than I am. People who are, in many ways, I shouldn't even be talking. They should be talking. I should be listening to them. Ask me great questions and listen intently, even though on paper they should be the one doing all the talking. But it makes sense because these are people that never stop collecting data.
Right.
And they see other people as good data sources.
Someone that has something to offer.
100%. And you can tell, like, not only the questions they ask, but the follow-up questions they ask and their level of engagement. And so, again, I've seen people that were that had every reason to be prideful, still somehow maintaining this curiosity about people that the social strata might say are beneath them, but they don't see it that way. They don't see those people as beneath them. They see, them as equal humans.
Yeah.
And so they're good listeners.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know this person personally, so who knows? He could be a total arrogant jerk. and certainly I've seen him portrayed that way, but like Bill Belichick, I think is someone that comes to mind when you say that. Like, obviously a lot of people probably do think he's arrogant. Maybe he's not. Maybe he is. But maybe he just has a certain level of confidence in what he does. And some people just kind of carry themselves with a certain level of bravado or whatever. But I've heard people talk about how he will, like, the waiter at a restaurant will give him advice on how to coach his football team. And it would be very easy for someone in his position to be like, friend, I am is he the winningest coach or one of the most winningest coaches, right?
Yeah,
Ever?
He's won the most Super Bowls.
Yeah, like, I mean, this guy's record is insane as a coach. And yet he'll hear anybody out and he'll ask you more questions about why you think that. And he's interested because he's like, you know what? Somebody else might have thought of something I didn't think of. I think that says a lot about a person that they go, you know, just because I'm one of the best doesn't mean there isn't more I can learn. Doesn't mean somebody doesn't have something else to offer me. And just because they didn't happen to line up, you know, for whatever circumstance in life, they didn't end up in the same job field I did, doesn't mean they're not brilliant or that they wouldn't have a brilliant idea. I think that's really, really cool.
That's funny you mention him because we have a mutual friend that coached with him years ago on the same team, and he said that they were at a restaurant one time, like what you said, and the waiter was basically talking about football, and again, most of the time that would just be probably annoying. You're an NFL coach, and now the waiter's telling you how to do your job,
Right.
and so this guy was saying, we all tuned the waiter out, like, okay, who's this guy think he is? And he said, Bill Belichick will, if you don't know what you're talking about and you lack self-awareness and you're just spouting off, well, then he's not going to engage you in that conversation. Right. He said, but this waiter actually knew what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. He was saying some substantial things. And the rest of them were just like blew him off. And he's like, we look over and like Bill is like in an actual football conversation with this waiter because he goes, he could tell by the stuff the guy was saying, you know, he actually has a point. Mm-hmm. And so he goes, but think about that. Like, he didn't just write the guy off because, you know, he's waiting tables instead of coaching professionally.
Right.
He at least was open that within that interaction, I'm going to hear what you have to say.
That's right. Not
just write you off because you don't fit the profile.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of those like diagnostics that you would go of true humility, that do I actually listen to people, or do I just think I'm right? Or do I think only certain people, you know, people above me or something have something to offer, or do I see other people as, you know, having valuable things to be said, and I should be paying attention.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying you should pay attention to everything everybody says all the time.
Right.
But to give each person that fair shake. And so I do think it takes a level of humility to be a really good, active, astute listener. And if you think you're a little better than everybody and you know more than everybody, then you probably will tune people out and not listen so well.
So I think one of the things, like just a really sticky thing that you said a while ago, I mean, it's been several years at this point, but you were talking about, like, you're kind of a big deal. You're kind of a big deal, right? It's like the same sentence with different inflection to it. It really encompasses who we are. Like, in some ways, yeah, you are the only one of you that has ever existed in the history of the world. That's insane. The you know, likelihood of you coming into existence, the numbers are just astronomical. And then you lived to this point and you've done the things you've done, and you're like, that's unreal. That's so cool, you know? And so you're kind of a big deal. Yeah. But yet on the same token, that, you know, the flip side of the same coin, it's like, you're kind of a big deal.
Right.
Everybody had astronomical, you know, numbers for them to be here, and everybody has unique giftings, and, you know, so it's like, it's such a healthy tension to live in. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a tension to be managed, of living in that space of like, I'm kind of a big deal. And I mean, I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's so good.
I remember. I still remember that sermon. Actually,
Yeah.
it was John the Baptist, because he says that he's like, I'm not the light, I'm a reflection of the light.
Right.
Jesus is the light. So you think about a reflector on a bike, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make light; it reflects light. The light comes at it and it redirects it.
But it holds such value.
Oh yeah, 100 keeps people alive on their bikes at night, right?
Keeps people alive on the roads every day. I mean, we got reflectors in our roads,
Right.
so you don't cross the line.
Right, and of course Jesus says John the Baptist is the greatest to ever live. Mm-hmm. So his role was huge.
Yeah.
But again, I just think it's really healthy.
Yeah.
To go, what I'm doing, there's purpose to it. It matters, and so you have a sense of what you're doing matters, and feeling good about the work that you're doing. At the same time, not thinking of yourself, as Paul says, more highly than you ought. Take a sober self-assessment. Realize, you know what? A lot of people did a lot of stuff before I got here. A lot more people will do stuff after I'm gone. This matters, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so, again, you don't want to fall into like, what's the point of doing work, or
Sure.
the things you're doing.
Because it does. It affects the lives of the people that are existing with you right now, that are one of a kind and will never exist again. It affects maybe something that will happen for the next generation in some way. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, like the landscape of the state of Ohio is different because of a little short dude with a bag of apple seeds walking around, planting trees. Like, was that big of a deal? I mean, does that make sense? It's
Talking
like
about Johnny
I
Appleseed?
am talking about Johnny Appleseed, but
How do you know he's short? Was he short?
I think it's pretty. Maybe I'm making that up.
You're thinking
now
about
you're making-
Zacchaeus.
No,
He was a wee little man.
if I remember correctly, I think Johnny Appleseed was pretty short. Anyways, he was wiry, but the point being, like, was he the president of the United States? Was he, solving world hunger? Was he? No, he was just a little dude with a hat wandering around planting seeds, but he did some really beautiful work that's lasted for generations. My point being, I think there are things great and small that all matter over time, but it really is about keeping it in perspective. Now you're just...
Dad, are you ChatGPT?
ChatGPT,
Yep.
do you
knew he was
happen to
going to
know
ChatGPT.
anything about Johnny Appleseed's physical height?
I thought he was a
Johnny
myth.
Appleseed, whose real name was John Chapman, is a pretty legendary figure, and there's a lot of folklore around him. Historical records don't give an exact height, but he was often described as being tall and lean. So while we can't pin down an exact number, he was definitely known for his distinctive appearance.
That's incredible. If you could help me out, because my wife she misspoke a minute ago, and she said that Johnny Appleseed was short when in fact
public
he was tall and
podcast.
lean. If you were me,
did say he
how
was
would you
wiry.
lovingly sort of walk your wife through that sort of error? Like, if you have any advice, like, is this something I should just leave alone? Is this something that I should bring up? Like, what would you say?
That's a sweet scenario. I think the key is to keep it light and playful. You could say something like, oh, actually, I read that Johnny Appleseed was pretty tall and lean, in a fun way. Most of the time, little corrections like that are best done with a smile, and it makes for a great opportunity to share a little trivia.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
So would you,
by the
Greg,
way-
would you,
by the way.
hold on, no, because
By the
Elle
way.
is present for this one. Would you like to recall the time that
Oh,
you
no.
insisted that skydiving was infinitely safer than shark diving, and you were deeply, deeply wrong? Do we want to?
I can't.
Do we want to go into those numbers?
Hey, what do you do if your wife... hold on a second.
Oh my Lord, I give up.
What do you do if your wife is deflecting? So let's say, for example, she's been caught in a mistake, and yet instead of owning it, she just keeps deflecting to other people. Like, what advice would you give me on how to walk her through that in a way that's healthy, redemptive, and developmental?
That's a thoughtful approach. A good strategy is to create a safe and non-judgmental space for the conversation. You might start.
Hold on a
by
second.
gently
Before you
acknowledging-
finish, what if she's been judgmental herself, right? So, I mean, if we're talking about safe and non-judgmental, is it appropriate for me to come back in a non-judgmental way if she's been judgmental, or to create a safe environment if she's created an unsafe environment? What would you say?
That's a really good point. It can definitely be challenging if the environment hasn't felt safe. In that case, it might be helpful to approach the conversation with a lot of empathy and patience. You can acknowledge how both of you might feel and express your desire to improve the communication together. Sometimes leading by example can help create that safer space over time.
Yeah. Yes, dear.
All right, Chat GPT. Put it all on
Saving
me here. And by the way, for
All
the
right.
record, I was totally wrong. We got in a big argument the other day about
Big
what's
argument.
safer.
That
Well, it
we-
was pretty. I mean, a big
It was
argument. When
a
I say big,
4-person
It was a
discussion.
passionate discussion.
well,
There
it
you
was
go.
2-on-1, which means there was no
Well,
way I
no,
was gonna win.
Emery was there
that,
too.
well, if
Well,
it's
she was
fast,
just
it
kind of
doesn't matter if
laughing the
it's
whole time.
2v1.
So the whole thing was they were saying that shark diving is safer than skydiving.
And it is.
And so I was
By very
questioning
large numbers.
the statistics, because the number of people that go in shark infested waters and the number of people that skydive in a given year, I felt like we're so to say more people die from skydiving than they do from shark diving. Well, how many people are, other than the two of you and your couple of friends, go into shark infested waters and try to die, right? Most people don't do that. But lots of people skydive, right? So that was where I was at. So we went into ChatGPT for help, and basically you guys were right.
Basically.
Yeah.
Do you know what, honey?
I mean-
shake hands. We each have a loss now.
All right.
I apologize for calling Johnny Appleseed short. He was clearly quite tall and lean.
All right, so I think this is the time, because I have another question for you.
Go for it.
Probably time to kick it to Ella real quick. You don't have
Okay.
to speak on it, but feel free to react to any of the things we were saying, how you think in terms of how it might apply
Yeah.
in your world, or thoughts or observations you have.
Yeah, so when you guys were talking about like qualities or how to detect if somebody has humility, one of the first things that came to mind was somebody who's willing to take accountability. So somebody who is willing to admit when they're wrong, I feel like is a very strong indicator of
Like what I just did, is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah, something like that. But like somebody who's willing to admit when they've, fallen short or when they've been wrong in a scenario, I think is a really big indicator of humility, at least from what I've seen.
why do you think that's so hard to do for people? I mean, because it is hard.
No, it is. I mean, I think it's because nobody wants to be seen as wrong. It can kind of feel like a hit to your intelligence or like a hit to your ego in a way. And so I think sometimes taking accountability can kind of feel like you're admitting that you're not smart, which isn't the case at all. So I think that would probably be like my best guess about why that's so hard, but I'm sure it's a layered response. I'm sure there's a lot.
That's a good observation. You know how like most nights, like you'll come out and Shaylyn and I are on the deck,
Yeah.
and we're listening to a book or something. So the one we're listening to now is basically talking about how, like, it's like a psychology book, and
What's it called?
It's called
The Righteous Mind.
The Righteous Mind.
Okay.
So one of his points is, he says that we tend to think that our thoughts about righteousness or morality come from reason. So in other words, we've thought it through cognitively. But he said most of our beliefs around what's right and wrong come from our intuition, or which are heavily, triggered by emotion
Right.
and our feelings about something. And he said what actually usually happens is, instead of our brain rationally trying to think through to what is true, our brain kicks in rationally to try to defend our emotion or our feeling.
That's good.
So if something feels gross to you or something feels wrong to you, your brain doesn't start going, hey, is that wrong? Let me think of every scenario where maybe it
Isn't wrong.
it wouldn't be wrong. Your brain starts to work rationally to try to justify your initial response.
Right.
So like you said, if somehow it's brought to light that you were wrong, okay, that's going to trigger a negative emotion.
Right.
And then your brain is going to start fighting for reasons why you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of going, yeah, maybe I am wrong. Like that's really hard to do. That'd take like a
Definitely.
ridiculous amount of discipline and health to be accused of something being wrong, and to just in the moment be able to go, yeah, that was wrong. Like, I mean, we just don't humans don't tend to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So I think in some way, like you said, even if you don't immediately go, yeah, I'm wrong, and respond that way, the willingness to essentially go, look, man, I'm not going to let my triggers or my emotions or my instinct keep me from actually something that's true.
Right.
And to work your way through it and go, for this, and this reason, or maybe reasons I don't even know, that wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And even I don't feel good about it, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of people would rather allow the rationale to kick in to defend their emotions and then walk away from it and sweep it under the rug or just move past it, versus to stay in it long enough to come to a better conclusion and then use it as a growth opportunity.
Yeah, that's good. Super good.
Any other thoughts?
I don't think so. Those were just the few that were like kind of top of mind while you guys were talking.
Yeah. I will say this, not to embarrass you, but I've definitely noticed, like, as you especially as you've gone into your teenage years, you a lot more willing to apologize or to say you're wrong about something.
I appreciate
right?
that. That's not embarrassing. That's very sweet.
I think you have the same instincts we all do to get defensive first, and
Right.
I'm right there as well.
Same.
But your willingness, once you have a chance to think about it, and especially if it's been a good conversation,
Right.
I've always seen you listen well, and then often go, yeah, you know what, now that the dust has settled on it, my emotions have come down, that wasn't so good. And you've been willing to apologize. So
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
That means a lot. Thank you.
well, it's good too, even for all of us, to associate that to a development of the character quality of humility.
Right.
Of more than just being sorry for something, is like,
Yeah.
hey, you're actually developing true humility instead of
Right.
just the ability to look humble.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
That's really good. Do you guys want to kick it to a question that we have? Or
Sure.
Do you want to keep
Yeah,
talking?
go ahead.
All right. So, how do I know if it's God's voice or just my own thoughts?
You just
So I've
talked-
got this nail I need to bite right now for whatever reason.
Take your
It's-
time. Take your time.
Yeah,
No,
so
please.
I'm gonna chew on this nail for a second. Why don't you answer it, and then I'll
Just gnawing at your nail.
Sure.
I'll fill in.
Sure. Okay. So this was actually something you just touched on Sunday, so that's why I was trying to kick it to you. 'Cause
You were
I think
paying
you could
attention,
say-
bro. You were
I
paying
always
attention.
pay attention,
I've
bro.
seen you
I just
zone out.
quoted a sermon section from you from years ago.
If I
and
was
then-
you, I would zone out every once in a while, because you hear this stuff a lot. I mean, you hear this stuff a lot, and then sometimes you gotta be like, "What is this dude talking about?"
No. I find you to be a very engaging speaker,
Oh, thank
and I
you.
enjoy it. I mean, that's why I've chosen to keep talking to you for 21 years straight. You know what I mean? Longest running conversation of my life. So,
Roger that.
yep.
All right. So thoughts.
So thoughts on that? I do think that's complicated. I mean, I think we've all struggled with that at some point of wondering, was this last night's pizza, or is this like actually the voice of God? I think one of the things that we tend to overdo sometimes is like panic and think, oh no, like what if God told me to do this very specific thing? Like he's telling me to take this certain job or move to this city or, not date this person or whatever. It's like, I think that as long as you are doing your very best to honor God in the way you live your life in whatever circumstances you're in, I don't think that somehow it's like this catastrophic mistake if you misguessed, that I think God was saying this, but I did this. I think he might have said left, but I went right. If you are not super clear about whether it's you or God, and so you go right instead of left, as long as you are continuing to try to live a life that is full of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control, you're being good to people, I think that you can't fully go wrong if that, you know what I mean? I don't think that you are out of line. If you're unsure, I think you just do the best you can with what you have, and with being as in tune with the heart of God as you can be, and you go, as long as I can check what I'm doing and go, this is in line with the heart of God, meaning like his character and the way that he would want me to treat people and live my life, I think you're okay. I don't think you need to be in this constant state of panic that, like, what if he gave me this specific direction and somehow I just missed it?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably unrealistic to think that you're never going to kind of misjudge the voice of God or whatever, which is where I think like a verse like Romans 8:28, that God causes all things to work together
Yes,
for the
100%.
good of those who love him, are called according to his purpose. Like, I think that's where that kicks in, right? Because there's going to be times where I know I've done the wrong thing for the right reason, and
right.
probably done the right thing for the wrong reason, and everything in between. And I think when you live sort of paranoid that I'm going to misstep, I'm going to zig when God was telling me to zag, then it's probably going to lead to an unhealthy paranoia.
That's right.
And
paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, and
like
I think
you're not going to make a move.
I mean, I've said this before in our church, but you would be the person on planet Earth who I know the best. I know your nonverbals pretty well.
Idiosyncrasies.
I know all of it. Yeah. I know the sound of your voice. I know the words you use and what you mean and all this stuff. And yet you and I miscommunicate all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
And so, okay, God, who is speaking through his word, which is a complicated book written over 1,500 years under the inspiration of God, with although it's in the relatively same geographic location, the context was changing all the time. Yeah. So to try to get the right literary, historic, and theological interpretation to then make relevant to my here and now, and whether I'm supposed to quit the job or not, can be really tough, right? So, but again, we have God's word there. We also have the impressions through the Holy Spirit. Come on, you're going to miscommunicate. I don't think that God expects us to nail it all the time, right. And he does work it together for That's good. Right. I think, what I told our church on Sunday was talking about the flesh. So fear, pride, and appetites are like volume on a radio. And the higher you crank it up, the harder it is to hear yourself think or to hear the voice of anybody in the room. I mean, how often are you listening to something loud and somebody's trying to talk to you? You're like, what? What? And you're like, dude, turn the thing down. You do, now you can hear. So I think if we have the volume of our pride, our appetites, and our fear up, then we're going to be really prone to confirmation bias. So situations and decisions will be all colored by that. And often I go, yeah, God told me to say this, or God told me to do that. And the reality is, it seems like, you have two people saying God's saying the opposite thing. Okay. So I think that's where the best we can do to discern is to get those things that, fear, pride, and appetites under control, and then to be in God's word, and then over time to learn based on trial and error, develop wisdom. That one time I thought it was God, and actually it turned out to be this. I mean, that's part of accruing wisdom over time. That's right. And then to do it with a sense of God's grace, that he's going to work things together. And so not everything is me living terrified that I'm going to get it wrong and God's going to hold it against me forever. And I'll never recover. Yeah.
I tend to think that, or I think we tend to think, I should say, that there's like one right way, that God has this very specific path that he planned out for you, and nothing else, like anything else, is deviating from the path. I don't know that I think that's the way that's laid out. I think that there are a lot of really great, beautiful paths that you can take, that he can bless, that he can work through you to touch the lives of whoever you come in contact with, and bless the people around you. I don't think there's one right way to do that. I think that you can take lots of different turns on this journey. And as long as you're still headed towards that right destination of having a heart that is like Christ, of having your character formed more and more to be like God, there's lots of different ways to get to that. There's no one right or wrong way to get there.
Well said. Ella, thoughts?
I think it is a very complicated question. I think it's important to listen to people other than yourself and to ask good questions, because sometimes it can be hard to discern what is just your own plan and what's truly what's good for you. So I think it's important to ask the right questions, to talk to the right people, and to really spend time and think about it before kind of making a hard decision.
I think when you're trying to discern what is God saying to me, it is a good opportunity to dig deeper into your own mind and heart. So like,
Right.
it could be like somebody being so uncomfortable with the future being uncertain, like, hey, I don't know what's coming, and that sense of that feeling of uncertainty leading someone to try to push God into
Right.
an answer, or I need an answer, and so they might, because they have that desire for certainty, they just go, well, God said this, and instead of going,
good.
maybe part of my development right now is God allowing me to sit in uncertainty, to flesh all of this out, why I'm feeling so frenetic, or I'm
Frenetic?
Frenetic.
What does that mean?
Like frantic,
a little chaotic and frantic.
chaotic, frantic, almost like
Kind of all over the place.
pushing the pace to the rev limiter. So I've got this compulsion to get an answer,
Right.
and it might be God helping you to wrestle with that, because sometimes the answer is not.
It's not linear.
It's not time.
Yeah.
It's not time for that.
Yeah. That's
And
good.
we gotta. If I give you an answer now, okay, it's you're not ready for it. So, again, I think to look in and go, why am I feeling this internal compulsion toward I need to know what the future holds,
Right.
or what God wants me to do, instead of having enough faith to kind of trust that God's going to work it together, and I'm going to move forward, even though I don't know exactly how this is going to play out.
That's really good. All right. How to lead through a season while struggling with your mental health.
Ooh, so you're talking about leading others,
Yes.
or not yourself?
Or I guess
I mean,
yourself
that's-
too.
It's both, I guess.
They're both
but
leading.
I can lead off on this
Yeah.
one. Been there. That's something if you haven't listened to previous episodes, that is something that I've been honest and transparent about before on previous episodes. We can probably link that in the notes if somebody wants that. But yeah, went through a season a few different times in my life where I had, a real struggle with depression. And it is hard. It is hard to lead yourself out of. It is definitely hard if you're in a position where you're like, I still am responsible for leading other people. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that your 100% will not be the same volume all the time. So it can still be 100% of your effort,
That's good.
but it might not match the highest capacity you've ever had when you were at your strongest. So your 100% this day may have looked like this. Your 100% today may look like this. That's okay. Just keep showing up and giving your 100%. Do your very best. I think that pressure sometimes is almost like part of a spiral that makes people worse. So you have to just come to grips with that and go, this is the max of my strength today. I will keep showing up. I will keep, doing the things that I'm responsible for, but this is the best I can do. Second thing I think is be honest with the people in your life that are close to you. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to just solve the whole thing yourself. That's not how we're meant to live. And this is coming from someone who's a fairly solitary creature myself. So I get that. But this is not something you can bear alone. There's a reason that the Bible says bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. The best thing we can do as the body of Christ is to be there for each other. And so I talked to Greg. I talked to other people. I got support. And I think even just being a clear communicator with people that you're leading, you don't have to go in depth, with people on your team, if you're a team leader of some kind, about, the depths of your despair. But I think you do need to, just like if maybe you had a physical illness where you're like, guys, I may have to be out for some doctor's appointments, or, you're just keeping people in the loop. Like, hey, I'm going to be a little less available physically in the office these days because I'm doing this or this. It's all going to be fine. You can be transparent with your team to a point where you just say, you know what, going through some things in my personal life right now, I will be doing my very best to make sure it does not affect this team. I hope that you can, give me a little grace. If my best is here at a certain point, I will be working hard to get it back to where it needs to be. And then you actually have to do that work. You need to go to the doctor and make sure there's not a medical reason for why you're feeling the way you do, because often there is. There's something out of balance within your body that is messing with your brain chemistry or the way that you feel. You need to talk to a counselor, a therapist, a trusted friend, somebody, and work towards making that progress. You can't just go, oh man, everybody bear with me, and then you just don't try to claw your way out. That's not fair. And sometimes it takes some time, and sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's really frustrating. But just keep showing up every day and doing your best and doing the work to move forward, and you will get there. You will get there over time. But I think when you're trying to lead both yourself and other people in a season like that, give yourself grace, because it will be hard. It will feel like one of the hardest things that you've ever done. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. You can do it. Just keep showing up, keep being consistent, do the best that you can right now, and that capacity will grow again.
It's good.
Really good. You ready to ask your question? Or do you want to speak on this one?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of respect for that question and the whole subject, and I feel very personally always careful in speaking on the subject. I'm not a professional counselor or a clinical counselor or something like that, and so I always want to be careful I'm not making too much or too light of how to handle something. I think the broad strokes of what Shaylyn said, of not being afraid or ashamed to get the help that you need, whatever that means, and sort of counting the cost of maybe reorging your life and going, hey, I'm dealing with an injury here. I need to rehabilitate, or some of it will just take time to heal. So I need to maybe lighten my responsibilities some and catch a break in that way, to give yourself time to get yourself some more stability. Give that permission, I think, is great advice. And in terms of what it takes, I think it's like health. Some people tell you to eat all the carbs, and some tell you not to eat any of the carbs. And some people say you should eat and train this way, that way. I think some people say, hey, you should really go back into your childhood and unearth all these things, and others would say, I've heard others say, too much of that almost can be counterproductive. And so I think finding someone who seems to understand what you're walking through, and just not getting stuck, right? Not getting stuck, even if it's not, hey, I'm going to go, take on too much work in terms of professionally. Maybe you're take a step back professionally. I don't know, but you continue to work on your thoughts, and you work on yourself in a healthy way, and get some stability.
I think that's really good, and I want to make sure I clarify, because I may not have done this well the first time around. There will be some areas of your life where you have no choice but to keep showing up full blast to the best of your ability. If you're a parent, if you're a spouse, whatever, you've got to do, if you're in a certain position at work and there's not an opportunity to step back, whatever, that means maybe you clear out some space in other parts of your life for this season to heal. So if you're leading something and it's like a volunteer position, it might be time for you to step back from that leader position.
Let somebody else run the Parent-Teacher Association.
That's right. You don't have to be the PTO president right now.
Somebody else can coach third grade soccer.
That's 100%. Some of those things, you don't just keep plugging and trying to cram it all in. scale it back.
Yeah.
Scale back until you just have the most crucial things on your plate so that you can pour your full energy into those and spend the rest of the time really working on your health.
Yeah. That's good. I'll save my question for our next conversation because I got a meeting.
Leave me on a
gotta go
cliffhanger.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
I know.
All right.
I know. It's going to be awesome.
Do we have music or sound
Same
Yeah,
music?
man. You know where it is. You
All
know
right,
what.
all right, I
You know
got
what it
you.
is. Go ahead.
I got you.
Hit it,
Go
producer.
ahead. You got to turn it up. Yeah, there you go. All right, Ella, go ahead. Just lean into that mic. Hit a little freestyle. Go ahead.
No.
No, let's not.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Maybe next time. Maybe if you get me as a special guest.